it's another Declan Rice video. We've not done one in a day or two. No, we've not done one in a little while. And a lot of the Declan Rice ones are sort of relating to transfers, which I guess this one is to one extent or another. But it's really more to do with the development, if you like. You know, the sort of organic growth of Declan Rice, for want of a better phrase. And it sort of casts me back to... You can keep going back incrementally in stages when you're looking at Declan. And I want to go back to, I guess it was a transfer window, maybe 2 transfer windows ago, when he was getting linked with a lot of the big clubs. But there was very much, I think, a suspicion that they weren't willing to push the boat out for him. For Chelsea, Lukaku was the more important signing. For Manchester United, certainly it was Jadon Sancho. You've got to remember when, at this point, they didn't know that Ronaldo was available, never mind that they were interested in him or looking to sign him. Looked like Ronaldo was going to go to Manchester City. That was all a big surprise for everybody. My point being, Manchester United didn't look at Declan Rice and think, we want to spend all of our budget on you. Chelsea, the same. And, of course, then you look at Manchester City. They went and spent a lot of money on Jack Grealish. Liverpool, I just don't think they've got that kind of money, really, have they, at the moment? You start to look back at Liverpool and think, well, you know, Liverpool are relatively lucky they've got the manager they do, because they haven't spent massive amounts of money. And a lot of those good signings were with the 150 million they got from Coutinho. Doesn't that look like good business, by the way? So... You sort of looked at it and thought they're not willing to push the boat out. And why would they at the time? You sort of get it. And I think this is why there seemed to be this perceived drive to force down Declan Rice's price, which was Declan may or may not sign a new deal at West Ham, but if he does, it will be a buyout clause. And the buyout clause will be 60-odd million. The suggestion was, we had no direct quotes, but the suggestion was that Declan's team or team group of advisors felt that the £100 million price tag was too much. I wonder if they would agree with that now. Another reason that I felt that a lot of the clubs didn't want to buy Declan Rice is, why would Chelsea need Declan Rice? They've got N'Golo Kante. Does that job, sweeping up in front of the back four, right? You also look at Liverpool. They've got, I always get my Fabinhos and my Firminos mixed up, but they've got Fabinho, who does a similar job there. And you've only got to look at Manchester City. Rodri has been playing well, been really good form, hasn't he? Of course, they've got Fernandinho as well. Do they need the guy sweeping up in front of the back four? They just don't. Do Manchester United is slightly different, McTominay's there. But my point is, they had some cover in that area. And I think the thing was, that was very much where Declan Rice had been pigeonholed. Declan Rice was the guy that covers the back four. And I look at it now and I think, whilst they may well have looked at Declan Rice as a replacement for N'Golo Kante, a poor man's N'Golo Kante, whatever the case may be, I look at it now and I don't think that Declan Rice sees himself as N'Golo Kante. I wonder if Declan Rice looks upon himself more as a Steven Gerrard. And that very much changes the dynamic from every facet, from every point of view. Whether he's staying at the club, whether he's leaving, whether they're a club that want to sign him. Because at that point, the moment he becomes that dynamic midfielder that is scoring goals and protecting defence and is box-to-box, in essence, to become a box-to-box player, then it changes, doesn't it? Because you're not then looking at your squad thinking, we don't need this guy. Rodri does that job. We don't need this guy. Kante does that job. Well, actually, you don't. What you've got is the midfielder in your team that can do all of the jobs. In many respects, this type of midfielder Paul Pogba should be, but isn't. I'm not saying he's not a fantastic player, but there's two things with Paul Pogba. Number one, he's not consistent. Number two, considering his size, considering his physical advantages that he's got, he doesn't put his foot in nearly enough. I mean, Paul Pogba, I think, fancies himself as just an attacking midfielder. Paul Pogba had Declan Rice's determination and mindset Paul Pogba. Well, Paul Pogba wouldn't be Paul Pogba, it'd be Ruud Gullit. It'd basically be an all-encompassing player who did everything. Now, I actually think that player is there now, and it's Declan Rice. And I think he's now so good, if you are a club that covets him and are interested in signing him, then you're going to be looking and think, actually, we have to have this guy. I wonder if now Manchester United look at it, particularly in light of the fact that A, they signed Ronaldo, and B, Jesse Lingard is playing better than Jadon Sancho. I wonder if Manchester United now look at it now and think, we signed the wrong player. We should have gone and signed Declan Rice, because let's not even consider having a conversation whether Declan Rice is better than McTominay or Fred. It's silly. We're dealing with a player now who, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, particularly given that we are in European competition as well, that we're dealing with a player that could score 10 goals this season. 10 goals from midfield is not to be dismissed easily. You start looking at his age. You start looking at the fact that he is one of the first names on the England team sheet, that he's a leader. You start to realise he's actually one of the very, very special players of his generation. And then I think, well, hold on a second, it's not just going to be one team that might want him, which in this instance, in the last transfer window, Chelsea would have taken him if they could have got him at the right price. It's almost Chelsea doing us a favour, doing Declan a favour. Look, do you know what? We'll take you, but it's going to have to be 50, 60 million. You go from that mindset to, actually, we desperately want this guy, we must have him, and we're willing to pay the going rate. Well, if Chelsea aren't the only show in town, and Chelsea aren't the only team saying that, if what's happening is Manchester United saying, actually, we've got to get this player, this is our main signing in the summer, we want him above every other, and we're willing to pay the going rate, and then Manchester City enter the bidding and say exactly the same thing, Fernandinho's retired, this is going to be our guy. They've already shown the capacity to spend 100 million. They spent the last 3 or 4 years, I feel, City chirping a little bit that they hadn't spent as much as some of the others. They hadn't broken the British transfer record. Had they spent 80 million or 90 million on anyone? No. But my word, they'd spent a lot of 50 and 60 millions, hadn't they? So I think we can give over this pretense that they're not going to spend big. Now Manchester City have sort of entered the fray and they say, actually, we are going, we're willing to do this. And I think if you're dealing with somebody who is, as I mentioned in the review, all the facets of a footballer, what go into a footballer, well, if you just look at things physically, it's distance covered, it's first touch, it's passing, it's dribbling, it's tackling, it's heading, it's shooting. Declan Rice has got it all now. Then you add in the mental aspects of it, which are determination, a will to win, reading of the game, actually almost being that on-field general, that, if you like, that's going to sort of do what the manager was going to do anyway, which will see that a game is slipping away or see that a game needs driving on and grab the game and just drive it forward. You have to have him in your team. So I think the question is, will any of those teams come the end of the season be looking at Declan Rice thinking this guy can improve our team? I think he improves everybody's team. I really do. I did the video yesterday where obviously, you know, we've lost once, and that by a slender Glenda margin in the last 19 games. How much of that is down to Declan Rice? Look, not all of it, but he's played a massive part. You can't dismiss what Antonio's done, and Ogbonna, and Souček, of course, and many more. That's the great thing about West Ham, right? We're not just talking about 1 or 2 players. But I think you have to accept that if we're going up against most teams and we're coming up with favourable results, we probably are dominating midfield. If that's the case, then he's one of the best midfielders around. He's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. I think he's on his way to becoming one of the best midfielders in Europe. And when you start doing that and you add in, you know, you've got to have a certain number of homegrown players in your team, and just how good he is, and that is, look, strikers win your matches, right? Strikers win your matches. And it takes it back to what Brian Clough said about Peter Shilton, which is basically Peter Shilton. He said, Peter Shilton's worth about 12 points to me each season, additional points. he was saying having the best goalkeeper in the country is worth this many more points to Nottingham Forest. You can quantify it with a striker. How many more points is this striker worth? Well, quite a large number. I think you can put it on there. But here's the point: will having Declan Rice in your team win you games? The answer's yes. And it's as simple as that. And if the answer is yes, which it is, then other clubs are going to want him. And I think you're just going to get this point whereby, look, I want to keep him. I would love to think this season, what would need to happen for West Ham to keep him? I think if West Ham won, it's going to sound silly, but you've got to have a little dream here. I think if West Ham had good league form all season, West Ham won the Europa League, and by default qualified for the Champions League next season, I think we'd have a chance of keeping him. I'm not entirely, and I was really pleased by what he said the other day about he's not kicking up a fuss to leave West Ham, and I thought his comments were wonderful. The reason I say that rather than just finishing top four is I think winning a trophy and qualifying for the Champions League would be enough for him to say, do you know what, I will give it another season because it's a club on the up. I think the suspicion was when in the transfer window it was rumoured that he might be agitating for a move. It was rumoured that actually he's disappointed because there's not been investment in the team. Well, the investment did come, it just happened late. I'm pretty sure he'll see Zuma in training and think, well, if we can add another couple of these, then it's a club moving in the right direction, really, isn't it? That's what I hope happens. I hope he stays. If he doesn't stay, I've got to be honest with you, not only do I think we'll be in for a bidding war, but I think the bidding war and the competition for his signature may well push the transfer fee in excess of the British transfer record.